All right. Thank you, Melissa. It's a real honor to be with everyone here tonight. I'm in New York City, so I say tonight. It's a cold 34 degrees. But really happy to be in the room with everyone to talk about opening up the IC Toolkit and introduce you to Jim Knight, the founder and senior partner of the Instructional Coaching Group, or fondly known as ICG. He's also a research associate at the University of Kansas Center for Research on Learning, and he has spent more than 2 decades studying professional learning and instructional coaching. Jim earned his PhD in education from the University of Kansas and has won several university teaching, innovation, and service awards. Jim wrote the first major article about instructional coaching for the Journal of Staff Development, and his book, Instructional Coaching, offered the first extended description of instructional coaching. He went on to write many more books, including the one that we'll be talking about today, which was written in collaboration with Dr. Jessica Wise, who is a virtual consultant with the Instructional Coaching Group. She began her career in education in 2007 and has held various roles, including classroom teacher, school-based instructional coach, intervention gifted teacher, district literacy specialist, and then leadership and staff development instructional coach. Jessica received her doctoral degree in school improvement from the University of West Georgia, where her focus was facilitation of adult learning. So Jim, along with Jessica and their partners, Michelle Harris and Amy Musante, are the authors of this book that we'll be jumping into today, the IC Toolkit. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to our wonderful authors, Jim and Jessica.
Thanks, Megan.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. Jim, it's always so wonderful to be with you in the various places where we meet up.
That's right. It's a pleasure. I'm so glad we're here.
I am too. And we have a couple of outcomes for you all today. So we do hope that you understand the ideas behind the creation of this magnificent book, which, by the way, Jim, I don't know if I showed you, I added tabs to my book because I love this book, and the spiral bound is just so much fun. And then we hope that our second outcome, that you all can.
I have my copy too.
You have your copy too. Oh, and look, hold on. Let me show you the other really cool thing about my book. Are you ready? It's signed by you. That's my favorite part. So our second outcome for you all is to learn how to grow a coaching program or your own coaching knowledge and skills through the use of this awesome book, which we're here to talk about today. So Jim, let's kick it off. And I have a few questions for you, if that's okay.
That'd be great.
Okay, so let's start with, what were you hoping to accomplish with the creation of this lovely book, the IC Toolkit?
That's such a good question. And I think there's kind of a selfish thing I wanted to accomplish, and then there was maybe a not selfish thing. And the selfish thing is, for the last 25 years, I've been writing articles and columns and different ways of exploring different aspects of coaching. And they always seemed to me like they were out there and they were going to be forgotten. And I really wanted to put them together in a book. And so now I don't know the total number, but there's something like 40 different articles. And some of them are about life things, like how you figure out your priorities, or how you can address being judgmental of other people and be more appreciative of people. And some of them really reflect on what's the measure of your life and so forth. And then a lot of other ones are about different aspects of coaching organized around what we call the 7 success factors. So that was one thing. I wanted to have this home for all these articles. And then the second thing is I kept seeing people having coaches in their school where they weren't really using their time as productively as they could. They were getting together, but they didn't have sort of a process for really getting deeper into coaching, developing their skills, developing their knowledge. And I thought it'd be really cool to put together a book that was sort of organized so that every week a group of coaches could come together and talk about the different elements. So I was thinking about the 36 weeks of a school year, and I was thinking about all my little articles that were out there without a home, and that's kind of where it came from. Those are the two things I was thinking about.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Jim. I think it's 48, by the way, 48 articles. And I wanted to go back and count them, but I think it's 48. And I almost think that this is like the Gym Night anthology, part one, because there's
Oh,
more
we're
to
already writing
come.
new articles. That's right.
That's right. So part two is in the works right now, but it's like the anthology of your thinking over many, many years. So it's really cool. And you said something, Jim, that touched my heart. So when I first started in instructional coaching, I was all by myself in a school trying to figure out what it meant because it's not coaching sports. It's obviously doing something different, but I didn't know what it was. If I had this book at the start of my career, it just would have set me up for success. And I am so pleased that it's out now and that it can be in the hands of people who are starting their career or in the middle or even nearing the end and looking for something to use. So I'm just really thankful that you put this Gym Night anthology together.
Well, but I didn't put it together. You put it together.
That
So
our team put it together.
to be fair, you were the I don't know what it is, the person who put it all together. I'm looking for a metaphor and it couldn't come. But you, Michelle, Amy put this book together. There would not be a book though without the three of you because I would have never been able to put it all together. And you put it together in record time.
That's
So
right.
how did you do it? How did you put the book together? And I have to say, I can say this because I didn't organize it. I had nothing to do with the way it looks outside of writing the articles and coming up with sort of the 7 success factors. I think it turned out great. I'm really grateful to Corwin for putting together this book that's got color and all these things. I love the way it turned out. But how did you put it together?
Yes. Well, I just didn't sleep for 5 weeks. No, I'm joking.
Probably.
So I just want to start by saying that putting it together was a part of my own learning journey because I reread all of these articles. Went through the process of printing every single article that's included in this book. And we read them and we thought, okay, how can we organize these in a way that's accessible to our readers, that fits with the research you've been pouring your life into? So we landed on organizing them according to the 7 success factors. And that's why I like to say it's such a great companion text to the definitive guide to instructional coaching, because that sets us up for success with the success factors. And then here comes the IC Toolkit organized in the same way. So we took all those articles, 48 articles written by you, Jim, and some who had collaborators on them too, organized them into those 7 success factors. And then it hit us and we thought, hey, there's more that we could put in these success factors. These chapters can have even more articles. So we found alignment with checklists that you've made and videos that you've done. We have scenarios, we have activities, we have so many different elements that really poured into this book to make it this toolkit. So once we had all of that rich content, we started to see what surfaced was learning activities, or what we call them in the book, learning paths. So we took the articles, we paired them with reflection questions, with activities or protocols, some people like to say, and we pumped out many, many, many learning paths that our readers can use to explore these 7 success factors in a way that really honors one of the partnership principles of reflection. So really making sure that there's an opportunity for dialogue, for voice, for choice, but also the book really is, it focuses on reflection because we want people to reflect along with all that great learning. It is truly a toolkit. It has everything anyone needs to learn and engage in instructional coaching activities.
You know, what I love is you can use the activities described in the book to read the book.
Yes.
You can actually use the book to help you understand the book. And the book's not, I mean, you could read it from cover to cover. I would imagine once somebody gets into the first page or two, they're just going to have a hard time stopping and not going page by page. But it's really designed to pick your part. And I'm going to look at this part, or I need this, or I need a case, or I need to look at an article about why would we use data this way. And so it's packed with all those things and sort of accessible pieces.
That's right. And I think, Jim, a lot of people have come to us or to me and said, hey, what's that article Jim wrote on autonomy? And a minute ago, or last month, I could recite it and I could tell them what page it would be on an IC toolkit. But now I can just say it's in our toolkit. Every article, anything they could want, it's just right here. It's just such a nice toolkit. What a great name. So, Jim, why do you think it's important that this book was organized around those 7 success factors?
Yeah, I would say, you know, we've been doing research on this for 25 years. And it started out, we had a small grant for doing research that got us interested in this back in about 1996 or something. And then Then we got some significant funding through Gear Up. We won the first Gear Up grant that was ever offered. Then we won several other grants. We started to use school improvement grants. Then we got other kinds of funding. And with the Gear Up money, we started to explore what coaching was and how it worked. I worked every day in a school district for 10 years for 7 years, and then directed the project for 3 more years. And then we had 2 other research projects, one in Beaverton, Oregon, one in Othello, Washington, where we continually looked at what coaches did. And so every week we would get together on Friday and we'd say, what's working, what's not working, what do we need to change? And it emerged through all that. And then we did lots of other kinds of studies, qualitative studies where we interviewed people, quantitative studies where we looked at the impact of coaching, and we found a effect size of 1.02 on student engagement when there was coaching. But we kept doing these different kinds of research. The main thing we did, and this is described in the Impact Cycle, which is a Corwin book, was what's called lean design research, where we would try something out, we'd see how it works, and we'd recognize where there were some friction points, and we'd problem solve how to improve it. Then we'd repeat the iteration. So it was kind of we called it lean design research, but it's a variation on 2 books, The Lean Startup and, Design Thinking. So over that time, I went from really, what is this thing we're doing? Just get in there and do something, to pretty precisely laid out work based on decades of research. And we simplified that by identifying 7 success factors. And we would say these success factors have to be in place for a coach to succeed. If any one of them is missing, it's not going to be successful. And so the first 3 are the beliefs that guide your work. We talk about the partnership principles. It was my dissertation research when I did my doctorate. And then we talk about communication and coaching skills, particularly the way you listen, the way you ask questions, and the way you engage in dialogue about things you're sharing. And then how you lead yourself and how you lead others. And that first 3 things we call, that's who I am. It's what do I believe? How do I communicate? How do I lead myself? How do I lead others? And that part of that is how I use my time. Part of that is how I interact in a way that amplifies the capacities of other people to unleash their potential. Then the second circle, if you want to visualize a Venn diagram, would be the coaching cycle we have, the impact cycle, and then the data that we gather and the teaching practices. We would say a coach is going to have a hard time being successful if they don't have some kind of effective conversational framework. We refined it over 10 years. And then they really need to know how to gather data. And so to gather data, they need to be able to look at what's happening in reality and help people set goals and then monitor progress towards the goals. We say in the data rules book, data should foster hope. And then the third thing is that there's teaching strategies, that you have an instructional playbook, which I wrote about a long time ago in the impact cycle, that the coaches need to know what those practices are and they have to have deep knowledge, nuanced deep knowledge, and then they communicate the strategies through the use of checklists or other communication tools. So first off, who I am, my beliefs, my communication skills, my leadership skills, what I do. I have a coaching cycle. I can use it fluently and proficiently to help people move through setting goals and hitting the goals. To do that, I have data to help us set the goals and monitor progress. I have strategies to help us hit the goals. And that all takes place in a context where the coach is supported, where the coach actually has time to be a coach. And there's widespread understanding of coaching and a culture that's psychologically safe. And we would say, if any one of those things is missing, it's going to be hard to be a successful coach. If I don't know how to gather data, how do I set goals? If I don't have teaching practices, the teacher sets a goal and I got nothing. It's probably not going to be helpful. You probably need to know what your strategies are, be able to describe them. You need a framework. You need a set of beliefs that decreases the likelihood of resistance, increases the likelihood of alignment. You need to ask questions and listen effectively. All those things are essential. So to me, those 7 success factors are critical because you've got to address all 7 of them. And so if I'm a leader of a coaching program, I can give everybody a copy of the book, and then we can work through the 7 success factors, zone in on a few of them, continually improve. It's like a rubric for effective coaching, those 7 success factors is kind of how I see it. Would you add anything into that, having thought about this and described it so often in so many different ways?
I think what's important is people are always asking you or asking a part ICG, what does it take to make coaching successful? And this book just continues that answer is It's the 7 success factors, and we're not veering from that. We're just going deeper, and this book allows people to really expand their learning. And what I love about it, Jim, what I'd add to it is, let's say that people come and they learn about the impact cycle, but they still have questions, which they often do about peers goals, for example. You've written about peers goals. We have scenarios about peers goals. You have a video about how to make a good goal, and all of that can happen in this book. So the reason why it's so important that this aligns with those 7 success factors is because we can just allow people to go deeper on their own time, in their own learning paths, and through the research-based and vetted articles that you've written and activities that we've put together. I just think it continues to show our learners and everyone who wants to learn alongside you, Jim, that this is the way to go. The 7 success factors contribute to success. And you mentioned groups of people who come together to learn. And when they have this book, there's no longer a question about how we learn or what should we learn about or what should we read. And their answer can be right here. And you even talked about a few things. You mentioned coaches as leaders or data or instructional playbooks. And if people are interested, but they're not in a workshop with us or they're not in the Institute, which they can be, of course, they can turn to this book and begin their learning journey here and then say, this is an area where we really need to continue working. So that this book really allows them to build off of what they already know from you about the 7 success factors, about effective coaching. And if they've read the impact cycle and they want to keep learning, this allows them to go even deeper. I think that this was, like I've always said, and I continue to say, it's a companion to the definitive guide. I think if I were a learner and I was reading definitive guide and I'd want more, I could go to this book, the IC Toolkit, and it's just an extension of all your great thinking. It's just a remarkable book. I'm really excited it's here.
I want to say that our little company, the Instructional Coaching Group, is what's called a B Corp. I think we're the first educational coaching B Corp, maybe the first educational or coaching company that's a B Corp. And a B Corp is an organization that's focused on benefit and doing good. So I know we're like, hey, you should buy this book. It's better than sliced bread. But it's not really something because we want to sell the book, although I suppose that's good. It's really, we think, to be successful as a coach, you need to know these 7 success factors. This is going to give you tools. It's going to lead to better coaching, and better coaching will lead to better outcomes for students. You work with one teacher and every student they ever work with is benefiting from that teacher with what you do as a coach. So we're just passionate about the fact that we can make a difference through effective coaching. And this, I really feel the tool helps us move forward with that sort of agenda. Our mission or statement or goal is excellent instruction every day in every class for every student everywhere. And this book helps us do that. And if you have great coaching, you're going to have even better teaching. And that the better the teaching is, the better the outcomes for kids. So that's our passion. And not so much about get this book, although we'd love it if you did. It's really more about this is promoting high quality instructional coaching. And there's a lot of misunderstandings of what instructional coaching is. So this book hopefully will help people get the tools they need to be really successful.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, because I think what also this book does is it says we've got you. And no matter how you're learning or experiencing the growth of a coach. So if you're a solo coach, if you're a group of coaches coming together, if you're a coach champion, like you mentioned a moment ago, who wants to get a book for everyone, all the coaches you're supporting, it's a way that you said we're a B Corp, we're there for people. I feel like this book is a way to care for the people.
Right.
Because we have everything in one spot. Anything you could need is right here, along with it's spiral bound and you have room in the margins to write. So it really is a way that ICG, that you, Jim, that the author team has said, we've got you, we're here for you. And we've put everything in one spot so you don't have to go searching for it. All of your work can be right here. And it can really help them grow in many different scenarios. Whatever your context is, it's for you. Okay, I have another question for you, Jim.
Good. I like these questions.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're having fun. Have you waited your whole life for this moment?
Yeah, I've been waiting my whole life for this very moment.
Well, we have more than 40 articles. I think it's 48. Now I need to go back and count them, but I'm pretty sure. And I called this an anthology of Jim Knight a moment ago. I wondered if you could share with us just about a few of the articles. And I have some up here on the screen, like Stop Coach Splaining, Data Shouldn't Be a Dirty Word, Hey Instructional Coach, What Do You Do? But these are just a few. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about some of these articles.
Yeah, so let's go with the data one first. And the data one, we talk about data rules. And we say that the data should foster hope. And it fosters hope by helping people see more of reality, seeing all students, and then setting goals and monitor progress towards the goals. And then when it's tied to professional development, the coaches provide a pathway to move forward. Now, the research on hope, we just talked about this earlier today in our virtual institute, but the research on hope says hope involves three things: something to hope for, a preferred future, a pathway to the goal, and agency, a belief that I'm going to hit the goal. And so data helps us figure out where we are. It helps us figure out where we want to get to, and it builds agency by moving forward. I was once in a meeting at a school district, and it was the day that the results came out from the state assessments, standardized tests, and it was just a miserable experience. It was just people, you need to do better, but nobody told people what to do. Everybody was trying hard. They were trying to do their best. They didn't know what to do. It wasn't something that fostered hope. So part of that article is talking about other things like that. That the data shouldn't be a dirty word. Data should actually be a tool that helps you build agency and foster hope. Then, hey, instructional coach, what do you do? I think sometimes people perceive coaching as your job is to tell teachers what to do, but that's not it. Your job is to engage in professional discourse around teaching practices. Now, you do it in a way that honors the professionalism of the other teacher. You don't sit there like a rock and not share something that's helpful, but you also don't do the thinking for the teacher. So you engage with them in a way that allows them to think along with you, and they're learning in the conversation. And that idea that I'm going to show up and I'm going to watch 30 minutes of your class and tell you exactly what you need to do, it's not really going to work. Melissa Campbell says, it's not really about fixing, it's about helping. I would say coaching is about now. We have to address the current situation, but coaching is about not yet. And so that, hey, instructional coaching, what do you do? That article is one you can just share internally, just so you know, I'm not like the fidelity police come in to make sure you do it the right way. I see you as a professional, and we're going to engage in professional discourse. And then that stop coach-splaining was kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing to say, coach-splain, but we all struggle with wanting to tell people. Now, Jenny, I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, here there it says Iron Man, right? So she's an Iron Man. That means she biked. I think she swam like 2.5 miles or something, and then she biked 116 miles, and then she ran a marathon. Her little line is, I run marathons, but they have to be part of an Ironman. Anyway, so she sort of got out of running for a while, and then we're sitting there in the kitchen drinking coffee, and she's talking about, and I started to give her all kinds of advice on how to do running, and she sort of looked at me and she says, I did do an Ironman, but we want to give people advice, and as Michael Bungay Senior says, we think our advice is way more valuable than it is, and we think other people want it way more than they do. And so coach-splaining is trying to teach yourself to stop what Michael calls the advice trap and really interact in a professional discourse. Because there's a lot of things in there, like your assumption that you know exactly what the person has to do. That silences them. And besides which, two ideas are better than one. So there's a lot of simple things. But there's a lot of articles like that I hope would zone in on the key elements. I'm curious, does any article stand out for you, Jessica? Something where you thought, oh, that's a good one to get in people's hands.
Well, I love these. And the reason that I love these so much is when I was a coach, I would do things like I would just walk up and down hallways and just tell people what to do. Clearly, that was coaching, right? You just, here you go, let me fix it. I've got the solution. And so when I read coach-splaining, I thought, oh my gosh, this was written for me. And then data shouldn't be a dirty word. When I was a teacher, data walls, which were a total thing then, it made us feel smaller, like we weren't quite doing enough of the work. And as a coach, reading your articles about data, and of course your books about data, helped me see that we have to re-empower teachers to look at data differently. And then I recall Jim sitting for the very first time as an instructional coach, which I still didn't know what that meant, sitting in a classroom, no students, watching teachers with their students pass me in the hallway, and I could see it in their face. Their face just said, what are you doing? What do you do? So I feel like your articles really spoke to me through all of my different stages of my career as a coach. So I love them all. But I think that what I appreciate the most about you is you don't just write about the instructional coaching part. You write about the human element. You wrote an article shortly after you had an accident about the trauma that you experienced and how you can continue to move past that. And it helped me see you and see you as a coach in a different way. It really spoke to me in my heart. And it helped me remember that people are living through so many things. So it's not just about making sure that we empower teachers with data. It's not just about making sure that we have role clarity. It's also about making sure that our people are okay. And we as coaches can help them to be okay. And we can follow these success factors and we can read your work. And it just was really inspiring to me. I love that article.
Well, this is
So
our
what
work,
I'm
not
talking
my
about.
work. Yeah, well, that's very sweet what you said, that it's our work, not my work. And it's the cumulative work of all the people we've worked with and the people who've influenced us. It's Michael Fullen's work, and it's Michael Bungay Stanier's work, and it's Christian Van Nieuwenburg's work, and John Campbell's work, and Zaretta Hammond's work, and all the people who've influenced us, Art and Bob, all the people we celebrate at our conference TLC, and it's your work.
Yes, and everyone here, all of your work too.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So Jim, out of all these articles, I have a question that I didn't tell you about this one, so just here it comes. Do you have a favorite article, one that stuck with you after writing it?
I don't know that there is one. I think what I would say is I'm grateful for the chance to write the articles because it helps me formulate things and think things through. Sometimes you write the thing you need to read. And so particularly the ones about, what's a meaningful life? How do you count the measure of your life? And relationships. And, we're all imperfect people trying to move forward just a tiny step, and it seems to be getting harder. And so I think for me, it's kind of like a journal, and the act of editing. Same thing with video. When you watch yourself on video and you edit it over and over, you get to see more and more things. The act of editing, the writing and thinking about it was a way of growing. So I don't know if there's any one article, but I'm grateful for the chance to do the work.
Yeah. Okay, so the question that comes next is, you don't have a favorite article, but you loved writing all of them. And then all of them appeared in this wonderful book right here. That's
Yeah.
spiral bound, by the way. So how did it feel to see all of your articles in one place?
I just love the way it looks. I really do. And I don't feel like I'm bragging because I had nothing to do with how it looks. Corwin designed it. You organized the pathway. You and Michelle and Amy came up with the pathways and put put a lot of work and effort into it. So, it's kind of like our conference, the Teaching, Learning, Coaching Conference. When I was there, the thing I felt was gratitude. I just thought, how cool that we have this team that could put on this amazing experience for coaches. And that's how I feel about the book. I feel grateful and proud and impressed, that we could do such a good thing. We lost you for a second,
Yeah,
Jessica.
I am back.
Were you
Like I
brushing
never
off
left.
tears as I talked? That must have been what it was.
Yeah, I had to pause and wipe them away. It's just wonderful. But Jim, I remember the day where you reached out and you said, "This is just so cool." And you emailed Michelle, Amy, and I. And you talk about your gratitude for everyone, but it's real. You live this and you shared your gratitude with us and for putting all of your babies in one spot. All of your articles came home to live in the Gym Night Anthology Part 1. So I just want to say thank you because I share this with everyone. You just live out all of these partnership principles and all of these beliefs that you say. And I remember getting that email and thinking, oh, that's really cool that we got to play a part in that. So thank you.
Oh, not just a part. You made it happen. There would not be a book if it was not for you and Michelle and Amy.
Wonderful.
So, how do you think our listeners can use this book? Do you want to add, what can you add to our conversation about how to use it?
Yes, I'm excited about this question. So we have at the very beginning of the IC Toolkit, we have a needs assessment. So readers of this book, whether they have an electronic version or the spiral bound beautiful book that you can fold and write all over, you get to start your learning journey by going through the needs assessment. And the needs assessment allows you to look at all 7 success factors and to answer, using, of course, the scaling question, some questions about where you are right now with those success factors. Earlier, Jim mentioned that you can create your own path through this book, and this is really where that begins, is you can move through the needs assessment, decide where you are right now, and then where you need to begin your journey. So for example, if you take the needs assessment and you decide, wow, we really need to work on data, you can head to the table of contents and you can look for that chapter on data and head straight to the chapter on data, or the chapter on the impact cycle, or the chapter on coaches as leaders. So based on your results using that needs assessment that we've put together here, you can find your own learning path. Or you can by yourself as a solo coach, with a coaching team, with a coach champion, with a leader and a coaching team. It allows you to say, here's where we are right now, and wherever you are is okay. And then to find a path that really suits you, that helps to build the professional knowledge and skills of the coaches within your system or on your team, or for you as that solo coach. And then once you get to that chapter, so let's say it's the impact cycle and you really want to grow your coaching program or your coaching team in the impact cycle. Once you get there, you don't have to read it from the start of the chapter to the end of the chapter. We have many learning paths from which you can choose. So you can start with the first one and move through all of them, or you can browse the learning paths and you can look at the guiding questions for the learning path, or the resources that have been included, or the activities, and you can say, ooh, this one is what I need right now. Or we can design the next month of professional development for our coaching team just by looking at the table of contents for the impact cycle chapter. And I think it really can be a reference guide too. So that's one way you can use it. Another way might be what I mentioned earlier is, gosh, what's that article by Jim about data? I can head to the data chapter. I can browse the resources in that chapter, find that article, and then head straight to it to do an activity, read that article, and to grow yourself in whatever area that you'd like. But of course, another way that our readers can use this book is in whatever way they'd like, because the book is so accessible. And so anyone can use it in whatever way. But to help people, we even have a section of the book right in the introduction that gives you context and scenarios. So if you're a solo coach, you can read about the solo coach scenario to see how someone might use it. If you're a coaching team, we have a scenario for you. If you're a coach champion, we have a scenario for you. You can even practice using the book through the introduction to really get ready for that journey. Would you like to add anything to that, Jim?
Yeah, I would actually. Two things, which is both of us interact with a lot of people with our virtual institute. We've probably, I don't know, we've talked to thousands of people now from all over the world. I don't know how many countries. I bet you 20 countries or more. And often they're not really sure what a good coaching program would look like or how to set up coaching. And we talk to leaders who say, look, I have this job of setting up coaching. What do I do? So I love the needs assessment because I think it's the product of a couple decades of research where we're continually finding what we're going to do. And then we help them look through and say, well, what do we need to do with respect to data, making sure our coaches have the skills with respect to, and then here are a whole bunch of things we can do to work on that. Or we really need to work on developing the impact cycle. Well, here's a bunch of checklists you can use to look at how you do the impact cycle. So it's kind of driven by a vision of what a good coaching program can be, and then it gives them the tools on what to do. And that's why I like the learning pathway, which is the other thing I like. It's just how the book is sort of sorted out so people can figure out this is where I need to go and this is what I need to do. And if you wanted to, you can keep, and then the needs assessment's online, so you could keep revisiting it every so often to say, okay, that's where we were, December 2024, but where are we now 3 months later, 6 months later? What's our status? So I think if I just really believe in the power of coaching. And I really see a lot of coaches who struggle to succeed because the 7 success factors aren't in place. Might be they don't have time to coach. Might be their evaluation isn't appropriate. It could be they haven't had training and what the coaching cycle should look like. They haven't had enough chance to practice, whatever it might be. They go into coaching to really make a difference. And when things are set up successfully, it should just blow the socks off in terms of, outcomes for kids. But it's not going to happen if it's implemented in a half-baked way. It has to be implemented in a way that's going to work. And so I'm excited about that needs assessment as the starting point for that learning journey. I love that idea.
And you just brought up a really good point is as people are using this book and filling out the needs assessment, if they choose to fill it out in the book, which by the way, write in the book, write all over the book. It's your journal / reference guide. But as they're filling it out in the book, and I'm turning to my page because I already filled out my own needs assessment, is you can even color code. This was my plan anyway, so I'm sharing it. And you can even color code the date that you take the needs assessment. And like Jim, what you're saying, is then come back however long later, use a different color, and you can see your growth right here in the book. And this book really represents, okay, if this is the area that I'm still trying to work on, I can go back and choose my own adventure, like someone said in here. I can go back and choose my own adventure to continue growing. Or as my needs shift, or as the needs of the people I support shift, maybe my journey through the book shifts. And you can read each article in different ways too. You don't even have to use the activities we've provided. You can read it and explore it in the way that works best for you. Such great comments in the chat. Okay, Jim, is
Yes.
there anything else you want to add about this lovely book, the IC Toolkit?
Well, I love how it's put together. You know, I think it's really beautiful, and I love that the color that there is. It's kind of sneaky how they did it because they changed the color by section or something. But I love how it turns out, and then you've got these things on the side, so you can figure out, oh, I'm going to go to the. This is going to be maybe the impact cycle, I'm guessing, and then you can figure out where you need to go. But I just have a lot of gratitude for everybody who was involved in creating it. I think it just turned out really great, and well, without getting too maudlin about it, it's kind of like going back through a box of photographs and seeing things at different points, but they're not like deeply, they're not. There's some researchy articles and they reference the research, but it's not a bunch of research. It should be accessible stuff that anybody could discuss and go through. So I'm really grateful to everybody. Frederick Brown from Learning Forward wrote the foreword. But I just when I picked it up, I thought, gosh, they did a great job, and so I'm really grateful to you for putting it together. I'm really grateful for how it turned out. What about you, Jessica?
Well, on the note of gratitude, I do want to say thank you, Jim, for allowing me to be a part of this. It was quite an adventure. I'm so happy that I had a small part in it, but also to Michelle, Amy, and you, of course, for the great partnership and collaboration we had. Everyone at Corwin, they were so lovely. I feel I told Megan and Lucas, who I talked to almost daily there for a few weeks, that I think they're my new best friends.
Because Megan tried to steal you away to work for her company. We're not going to have that.
Well, I just was it was a joyous occasion every time we email it because they are so wonderful. And then we had learning partners who were so kind to quickly read parts of this book as we were going through it, like some of our part-time consultants at ICG. And we had some friends in Massachusetts who were in our virtual institute at the start of the year this year. And I would send them parts of it and they'd read it and send it right back and send a Marco Polo with their thoughts. So blood, sweat, tears, lots of thoughts went into this book, and so many people, just the great ideas and the contributions of so many. So thank you to everyone who had a part in bringing this book, this Jim Knight Anthology Part 1, together. But I also want to add this, Jim. The reason I've written in my book in so many parts of it is because this is featured in our new One Fine Bird book club that we're starting in 2025. I'm so excited. I wake up actually thinking about One Fine Bird book club. And you know that you're inspired to do great work when it wakes you up. It's emotionally compelling, Jim. So if anyone out there is thinking, I not only want the book, I want to explore it, you can join us in the One Fine Bird book club. And that starts in January. And we will also explore the definitive guide and data rules. And the IC Toolkit will take us through this wonderful learning journey. It will be a part of our virtual institute, and I'm sure the in-person institute too. And I don't know if everyone heard me, but again, it's spiral bound. I mean, you love a spiral bound, a spiral bound book as an educator. It's like,
Is it spiral bound? I'm not sure if it's spiral.
Jim, it's spiral bound. Yes. And
I didn't mean to cut you off. I think I
no,
did, which is
please,
not a good thing for it. But I do want to just acknowledge that two other authors are not here who helped create it. Amy Musante, Michelle Harris. Michelle and I have worked together for, gosh, I think since 2009 or maybe even earlier. And I've learned so much from her. And I say she's my lucky charm. I have to have her in every one of the books somewhere. In this case, she helped create the book. And then Amy has worked for so many years as a coach for our team, and their expertise combined with your expertise and putting all the pieces together really made a difference. So I'm really grateful to all four of you for all that you did.
Yes. Well, thank you, Jim. And I don't know if you have the chat up, Jim, but just so you know, the book is spiral bound.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
So it is clearly
Words
exciting.
out, yeah.
Word is out. Yeah, tell
I
your
hate spiral bound books, but anyway, no, I'm just kidding. I love it.
oh, it's too late. It's done.
Yeah,
And everyone knows it now.
right.
Well, I just also want to say that this book allows you to stay connected to Jim, to the instructional coaching group, because I think one thing is true is people just love you, Jim, and people love the instructional coaching group. They love the work they do with team members all over our team. And if you want to stay connected, this book is how you can. And it's such a great way to say that ICG has your back, because the book is us just hugging you from a distance in whatever your context is. And really hope you enjoy learning with us.
Not everybody loves me, Jessica. I just gotta tell you that. You just read internet for a while,
Read the
but
comments.
I am the product of the community I work with. I'm grateful for that. People can email us at hello@instructionalcoaching.com with any questions. And we'd love to hear, we have, if people just love our banter, they could do the 16-week virtual course, and they could have 16 weeks of this kind of nonsense. But good. So I'm wondering if we could open it up for questions, if there are questions that we could have people ask. I've got a question for you, Jessica, before we get going, and then Melissa, if you want to bring, I can make up a few, but I'm curious, as you went through those 48 articles or whatever it is, did anything surprise you?
Oh, well, so many surprises. First, that you wrote so many words. I mean, it was just so many words in those articles, Jim. How could you do that? It was so great. But I think what surprised me is that when we hear the term instructional coaching, we just think it's one thing. It's just helping people get better in their classroom. But what we can learn is that it's also a lot of work on ourselves too. And I think as I reread all of your articles, I was really pleased to know that it's an internal journey as much as it is supporting people outside and in the classroom and in leadership roles. And it's not just for instructional coaches. If you're out there and you're in a role other than a coach, which by the way, I have my I'm an IC coach shirt on, but if you are holding a role other than that, it's for you too. So you reach so many roles through your articles, Jim. So I was really pleased by that.
I just talked to Susie Green on the podcast last week, and it hasn't come out yet, but it's coming out in a few weeks. And she's an expert on coaching and positive psychology. And so I asked her about, doing this work of being coaching, and her thing was, you have to start with yourself. You have to do the work on yourself so you can, if you're going to be positive for other people, you have to work through self-compassion and dealing with whatever demons you have to deal with. I thought that was a pretty profound thing, that you actually have to look internally to reach out and have an impact on other people. When you look at the 7 success factors, do you think any one is more important? And do you think you can skip any of them? What are your thoughts about that?
Goodness, more important than any of the others. Can you skip any of them? I think not, because I think that you mentioned a little while ago in our webinar that there will be holes in that coaching program if you were to say, well, let's just do the impact cycle, or let's just make sure that we have an instructional playbook, or let's just make sure we have data, without really considering the approach to coaching, which I guess I'm not saying there's one more important than the other, but I think that starting with the partnership principles is essential, because how you move through things like leveraging data, like executing the impact cycle, the approach to coaching, the way you partner with people is so important. So not just jumping to data and saying, okay, we're going to use data, let's use data, but really looking internally and saying, how am I showing up in those data conversations? So I guess I'm putting a lot of weight on the partnership principles, Jim. What would you say to that?
Well, I don't know if it's that there's ones, I think they're all important.
Mm.
But what I feel is we're also works in progress. We're all kind of imperfect, and so it provides, like, the principles that provides a vision of what you want to accomplish. Well, I want to make sure I don't judge my teacher I work with, because if they feel I'm rolling their eyes while they're talk, they're not going to come to me for help. And I really want to ask questions that help the person think deeper, but I don't want to be controlling. And I really want to know my strategies really, really well. And so I kind of feel like that my worry about the 7 success factors in the book is we feel like we have to get all of this all at once and know everything. And I think we're all just works in progress. It's never going to be perfect. We keep trying to move forward as best we can, especially when it comes to the beliefs, the leadership, and the communication skills that the beauty of life is tomorrow's another day. And so if this one didn't work out, we can try tomorrow. And we shouldn't worry about getting it all perfect, but it is nice to have a vision, and it is nice to have pathways. It is nice to have ways to move forward. That's the way I'd see it.
Thank you so much. I was scrolling through to see if we had any questions in the chat, but we'll just repeat a few things that I saw popping up. So hello@instructionalcoaching.com is how you can reach out to us and ask questions, and then the right people will respond to you. And Jim mentioned institutes. We have the 16-week virtual institute where you can hear more fun banter from me and Jim on Mondays. And then Jim has in-person institutes too. And it's just a really great way to build community. Jim, you mentioned community earlier. So we can do that. We build community, and you mentioned this from your Singapore post on Twitter and on social media. We can do that through our sessions. We can also do it through the IC Toolkit. And the next question is, Jim, can you elaborate on how to utilize the IC Toolkit for solo coaches? Any quick tips?
I think you should take that question. You're the one, you constructed that with that audience in mind. So what was your thoughts?
Yes, and that was me. I was the solo coach who was all alone in my building. And luckily, I found a community of coaches nearby and we started meeting. But if I were a solo coach, I'd, of course, start with that needs assessment. And maybe, Jim, if we have time, you can talk about that in just a moment. But I'd start with that needs assessment, really thinking about me and my coaching work and the program where I coach, the school where I work, or the system, whatever is most relevant. And then look at that needs assessment result and say, just for me, maybe once a week for 30 minutes or an hour, or twice a week for 30 minutes. In my calendar at work, I'm going to block off some time. And Jim talks about this and his Coaches as Leaders chapter of the Definitive Guide. But really make sure I have time on my calendar every single week where I can dedicate time to learn. And that 30 minutes or that hour block, I'm going to spend it in the IC Toolkit. And I'd really put it on my calendar to make sure that it's sacred time for me as a solo coach to invest in my own professional development. And I would do that every week, non-negotiable with my time. What do you think, Jim?
Well, I was thinking the book club. I mean, you could do the One Fine Bird book club. I love all the things you're saying, but the book club does give you. Do you know where that term "one fine bird" comes from?
Oh, tell us.
You don't know? Do you know?
No.
Well, it's kind of a Midwestern saying, and Jenny's father, my partner Jenny's father, he says "one fine bird." So like at Thanksgiving, you could have a pumpkin pie, and you could cut a slice of the pumpkin pie, and it's just perfect. And you look at that pie and you taste it, and you go, "Man, that is one fine bird." So that's what one fine bird is. That's where we got the idea. We weren't stealing birds because Corwin had birds either. It was the one fine bird is where it came from.
Well, that is one fine bird story right there. So I think what we'll have to do in the book club is every time we wrap up a book club session, we're going to have to say, well, that was one fine bird of a session.
That's good. I like that. I like
That's
routine is good. Rituals are nice. That's
yes, that'll be our end of session ritual. I love that. Okay, there's a QR code now up on this screen for those of you. Okay, and Jeffrey says, could you please have a link in the chat to download the certificates? All right, I think we've covered all of these questions, but is there anything else, Jim, that we haven't talked about that you'd like to say?
Well, there's always things to talk about, and we can always come up with good things to discuss. But can you tell us just a little bit about the process of how you put this together? You read all the articles. Where did the ideas from the pathway come from? How did all these pieces kind of come together?
Yes. Well, first, I want you to imagine all of your articles. I have a long desk right here, and then I have a second tabletop over there for my mess that's off camera. And I all of them were just spread out. And it started out, Amy, Michelle, and I were texting and poloing, and I said, where do we even begin? Let's just read them all. And I just want you to imagine reading the articles. There are sticky notes all over the place. We're taking pictures and we're sending them to one another. We're calling each other on the phone. Ahas and light bulbs are going off. And it was in that moment that we realized it's the 7 success factors. And it's almost like, Jim, I had this wondering, did you even know that all these years, these decades that you've covered through all this writing, you were writing about the 7 success factors the whole time? So it was just a really neat, what surprised me, I guess that would be one of them, is Maybe you didn't know in 1999 when you wrote that article that you were writing about a 7 success factor, and you were, and that's the journey that it's taken. It's pretty cool. But then what the learning paths came from, I'm going to shout out my former partner, Marquitas Adams, and this is how we approached our instructional coaching program in the state of Georgia, is we would give our instructional coaches in the cohort learn choice in their learning journey, and we called them learning paths. So even as I was reading articles and looking at your checklist and watching videos and seeing scenarios, it was just really clear that to honor the partnership principle of choice and to really allow autonomy through this book is we needed to have paths. And what are they doing on all those paths as they're learning? So it just kind of happened organically through that.
I love it. And when you look through, just flip through it. There's so many cool ways of exploring the books that might just be notes or questions or different activities. So I do love it.
Yes, and it's spiral bound. Sorry, that was the last time. I'm done. I'm not going to say it.
Don't limit yourself. It's out there as a possibility.
Is there going to be a part 2, Jim?
Well, we've probably, there's about, yes.
Yeah.
It might take 20 years.
Not 5 weeks.
I might be walking up with a walker to do it. But yeah, it took us 20 years to create this one. So we'll see how long the next one takes. But yeah, I like the idea. We have 2 articles now, 2 or 3 articles at least. So we're off to the races. Plus, you can start writing the articles too, J-Dub. So that's good too.
Yes, and people love this choose your own adventure, and that's truly what it is. You can design your own learning journey. And if you do, and when you do, we'd love to hear from you. So if you do explore the IC Toolkit in a way that's unique to your needs, please email us because we'd love to hear what's working for you. So of course, the part 2 can be even better, but we'd love to hear from you.
Great, and I will be at Learning Forward, so I'd love to see you there. I'm doing one presentation on goals and data. Goals and, strategies for instructional coaches. That's a pre-conference. And then I have another one on can principals be coaches? It's complicated. It's really based on the book we're working on with Christian this week on the Leader's Guide to Coaching in Schools.
If you were to have administrators read one article, what do you think they should read?
Oh, well, there's one early on about the 7 success factors. I would say that's probably an important one, but I might not even have them read an article. I might have them look through the needs assessment and think through where they are and where they want to get to in terms of that. But along with the needs assessment is the 7 success factors article. I think I forget the title of it, but that's very early it's maybe the first article in the whole publication is the one on the 7 success factors. What do you think, Dr. Wise?
Well, Dr. Knight. Well, I actually turned to chapter 7, the system support, and we had it up on one of the slides. Hey, instructional coach, what do you do? Because just today in our virtual institute, we talked about system support, and it was a resounding yes. One of the conversations that coaches crave is to have a conversation with their leaders about what it is coaches do. So I just think that's a great article that could foster a lot of great conversation in schools.
Great.
Are principals encouraged to read this book?
Yes, of course.
All of them, every one of them.
But this one, I think it's good. They can read it, in dribs and drabs too, and skim through. The learning pathway might give them a way to zone in on different things. So I think figuring out, I really need to look more at what's it look like when that's the power of the checklists that are in there too, and the cases. They really give you a chance to go deeper. It's a different kind of book because all the other books are kind of like, here's the start and here's the finish. But this is really like a smorgasbord of all these ideas organized around the 7 success factors.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for the messages in the chat, and we look forward to hearing from you. Melissa and everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Corwin team.